Hey everyone, so this is my first video on this channel, and I noticed that there were a lot of other videos on things all Valorant beginners should know, but I wanted to make my own, and slightly different. Before we get into this video, this is mainly for beginners or players that have been playing for maybe a week or two. But if you have over 100 hours on this game, trust me, just click off, it probably is not for you. But otherwise, let's get right into it. First of all, let's start off with characters. There are currently 15 characters in Valorant, 5 of them that you start off with. You can unlock the other 10 characters by simply starting contracts and gaining XP during your rounds. To start a contract, simply click on the Collections tab and select Activate on the character. I suggest you go into the training mode to try out all the characters so you can quickly start a contract for one of them if not already owned. This is because if you're not willing to spend money on the game, it might take a while to get that character. So the sooner the better. Moving on to the more important part, all Valorant characters are unique and different. They all have different playstyles and different abilities. Being a beginner, I strongly believe a character may make or break your game. They are very important, and I feel like every beginner just ignores the characters. Again, like I said in the beginning, I suggest to try out the 5 characters that you start off with and find the one that fits your playstyle best. Personally, I don't think any beginner should start off with Jet. Jet's abilities are Dash, Updraft, Cloudburst, and her ultimate is Bladestorm. I think all these things still rely on a lot of pure skill, making it something I believe beginners should stay away from. On the other hand, the character that I do suggest for you beginners to use is Sova. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of pro players that use this character and have plenty of skill using this character, but I still believe that's a good starting point for all players. Sova's abilities are Shock Bolt, Owl Drone, Recon Bolt, and his ultimate is Hunter's Fury. The reason I believe this character is the best for beginners is because of the simplicity of the character. Now, choosing a character is still up to you, and based on how you like to play. Moving on to the first round. This is the most important round in the game. I say this because whether or not you win the first round, it affects what kinds of guns you can buy and will give you an advantage or a disadvantage. So make sure to pay attention during the first round. On top of that, during the first round, you are given 800 credits to spend. These 800 credits are very important, especially during the first round, but too many people just skip over this part. Going back to characters, characters play a huge part in the things you buy during the first round. If you have a healer, I suggest not buying any shields and spend more money on the abilities and guns. If you're running a character that does not heal itself or is always in the open, think about getting shields and abilities. Just remember your character and spend your money wisely. Now moving on to crosshair placement. I find this a very important thing that so many people just ignore or choose to ignore. I believe all beginners should know about this crosshair placement. This is crucial for all Valorant players to easily hit headshots and overall kill your opponents faster than the other player. If you have a crosshair around someone's feet, it will take so much longer to move it up to where their head is or even get shots that do damage, resulting in slower time to kill your opponent and more time for them to kill you. In order to avoid this, try to keep your crosshair at head level. This will help with the amount of time it takes to kill your opponent. Another tip for crosshair placement is when waiting for someone to peek a corner, make sure to keep crosshair a little off the exact corner because most of the time people will be gaining speed when going across corners. Moving on to communication. Communication is one of the things I notice so many people ignore. It is just so important to make callouts and have your teammates understand where the enemy team is, especially when you start getting into ranked. That's when it's most important. But just to practice, get into a game and talk to your teammates. Let them know where the enemy players are. So now I've gone over the main tips that I wanted all you guys to know about, but I still have a couple small tips that are very beneficial and might help you out in your Valorant gameplay. So let's get right on into that. So my first tip here might seem like a no-brainer, but I feel like so many people just ignore this. But if you have an opportunity to flank in any type of a map, try it out. Because most of the time, especially in low ranks, people aren't paying attention to that. And if you're a character like Reyna or Phoenix, you can easily get over there and use your abilities to help out your team and secure your spot. Moving on to tip number 2, and that is notice the weapons your opponent has. This is crucial and is really a no-brainer. I feel like most people already know this and do it just without even knowing. If your opponent has a sniper, try to get close to that player. Try to get into his comfort zone and make it harder for him to kill you. Now, if your opponent has a shotgun, try to get far away from him. Try to use your things, get out far away from him, and make it harder for him to kill you. Moving on to tip number three. And this kind of goes with tip number two, but know the gun that you have, the weapon that you have. This can really help you in some situations. You might not notice what weapon you have. So get away from there if you have a sniper. Use long range. And if you have a shotgun, make it into your favor. Push that character, use your abilities. If you're using jet, use your dash and your cloud burst to quickly make a distraction, maybe use an updraft and try to get that character out of his comfort zone. Tip number four is just listen. Now, a lot of you already know this, but just letting you know that listening is one of the biggest parts of the game. You can tell if Jet uses their dash or if a character uses a different ability just by listening. You can also tell where characters are on the map and where they are heading. Listening is a huge, big part of this, and if you just pay attention and listen, you can really make some awesome plays and get your opponent. Tip number five is jiggle peeking corners. If you don't know what jiggle peeking is, it's just simply going back and forth between that corner and that open space, making sure that an enemy player is not there and kind of getting their location and understanding where they might be behind that corner. Now, the reason I say this is because it's so important that you don't just peek corners without paying attention. You might be paying attention, but they're holding that corner. It's important to jiggle peek just so you can quickly get back into your safe area and know where they are and be able to have a better chance at killing them. Tip number six is a very simple tip, but it still is very beneficial and can really help you out in the long run. So, tip number six is watching Valorant players, pro players especially. It can be on Twitch, it can be on YouTube. Just watch pro players and try to see what they do and incorporate that into your game. That's the biggest benefit. If you just watch what you're playing, watch people that are better than you, you'll start improving and you'll see the improvement as long as you take what you're seeing in that video and try to incorporate it into your game however you can. My last and final tip is another pretty simple one, but it's just to play the game. I see so many people that just ignore this fact, and it might seem like a no-brainer, but people sometimes just want to get better just to either show off or something, but they don't want to put the time in the game and they don't actually want to play the game. So, this is a very big part. You need to play the game, of course. Play the game, check what you're doing right and wrong, and just try to improve. So those are all the things I believe all beginners should know when starting Valorant, and even if you've been playing the game for a little bit, those are all the things you should know and should take into consideration if you really want to get better in the game. If you're just playing for fun, then again, of course, just chillax and play. But if you're trying to get better and improve into the game, these are the things I suggest you do. If you did like the video, consider subscribing or liking, and I'll see you in another video.